All right, Cyber Traders, good afternoon and welcome on back here this Thursday, July 1st, top of the month to everybody here. Great to see all of us live inside Cyber Group and all of us on social media, Facebook Live and YouTube. So without further ado, let's hop right into the thick of things here, as we always do. But, donut, DNUT, not Dunkin' Donuts, and it'll probably trip me up going forward, but Krispy Kreme, new IPO, right? So, we were talking about this early in the morning after the market opened up. One of our students, I think Bonnie, first referenced it, and hey, it's a popular company. It's relatively inexpensive, compared to some of the other, more popular companies that were off an IPO. So, hey, it provides a great opportunity to trade. We don't guarantee it's going to pop and run like it did, but when the stars align, it provides for a great trade. So, to go over this trade really quickly, I know Fausto is in this stock as a swing. Actually, during his webinar earlier today, he was wrapping it up, and that's when this thing first started trading. So, kind of caught him for a loop, and he ended up jumping in actually at the end of his introductory to day trading webinar. I know that's on our YouTube channel right now. We hosted that earlier today, at least. So for all of us in social media, if you're interested in looking at that at the very end, you could actually find that right on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/cybertradingu. However, we ended up seeing the stock make a nice pop, ran over 17. I ended up jumping in this trade myself going into the mid afternoon, shortly after 1:30. I was expecting a sharper drop, actually, to be honest with you. I felt it was worthy of taking the trade in terms of just the level, but I waited for this to break below 18, and then on the pushback above it, the slingshot, as we kind of call it, I ended up going long. It was on a 500 share count position, half size for myself. I didn't really, expect the type of squeeze that we ended up getting here. So I left the fortune on the table. I took a clean 50 cents. I'm content with that. But man, this ended up giving us a lot more. So, for right now, just, it's a stock that we were watching going into this afternoon meeting and new IPO. We're all familiar with the company, at least Krispy Kreme. But, aside from that, I'd just say trading a lot of volume off an IPO. Spread's a little wacky. It's starting to open up a little bit more the more it pushes up and pops, but the liquidity is still great. So we don't really trade IPOs too frequent. We'll call them out, say, "Ooh, look at this." But really, the IPOs are not as liquid. It's very rare to find a really liquid IPO, one that has a very tight spread and pretty, filled in order book. I always like to show this just for reference, but one of the more recent IPOs, just over the last 365 days, Palantir, right? This was the last one I was like really chomping at the bit for, knowing that they were coming out. I didn't really know much about the company, but point being, the stock was extremely liquid. They had a high market valuation, but a relatively low price. I think relatively big float for the company too. So that's what led us to trade this stock back in the end of 2020. Ended up pushing up beautifully from like 10 to God knows what, and then with that said, DNUT, we'll put this on our watch list for the afternoon. Hopefully to see this push up again towards 20 and see what it could do from there. All right. But aside from that, though, we have class coming up later on today, folks. I believe Fausto is finishing up. Well, not so much finishing up. I know that he actually had a bit of an issue in the morning class day. He's going to make it up to all of our gold, platinum, diamond CTU students by doing an extra class next week. But with that in mind, Fausto is continuing the phase 3 course later on this afternoon with our next live trading class. So let's go across the gainers and losers list pretty quickly, folks. Let's see what else we got. I'll just be very transparent, as I always am. There is one stock that I am currently in. I was talking about it just before inside Cyber Group. I'll get to that stock pretty shortly from right now. I see it on the gainer side there. All right. So for right now, we'll start from the top. I guess another IPO, CPOP. Not really familiar with the stock. I didn't really see it get called out even from yesterday. It looks like it made a huge move from like 12.26 all the way to 35. Gapped up this morning and popped up to 78. Look at the spread. Look how empty the order book is. In contrast to the donut trade DNUT. So the price, the liquidity, everything. Just this stock is not really tradable for us here. Now, on the flip side, this one certainly was. It's not as much right now. The ATHE trade made a hell of a squeeze off of 2. I was in this trade a couple of times today, 2 times perhaps, but I ended up taking a 2-cent loss at first. And then when it ended up snaking back up here, I ended up jumping in. And again, another trade where I wasn't expecting the end result that we got. I was expecting a move perhaps up to 225, 230 to see it break the HOD, the high of the day. And that's what I got. I took that profit, but man, this just kept going. You always worry about a stock like this. I mean, all of the percent gainers for the most part. I don't know what the float is on this, perhaps a little bit high. Nah, not even 15 million share float. That's kind of low. The reason I'm surprised by that is the fact that this stock has really filled in order book, tons of big orders on the bid and the ask now. It had that from earlier. That's what made this stock such a great trade. So it ended up popping from 2 and man, ended up giving us way more than we would have expected. But what I was worried about on the run up here ended up happening going into the late morning, shortly prior to 11 a.m. It ended up making a false breakout above 265, above 270, and then damn, once the selling kicked in, there was no looking back on that, right? I mean, just this is the drop off in volume, at least from the run up. But once this begins to snake back down and break below a big support and the selling volume kicks in, you hope to see a comeback, but that doesn't mean that you should try and hold on to a trade, right? Because clearly in this case, this never came back, not even up to 250. So can it do that tomorrow? Can it do that this afternoon? I don't think it could do that this afternoon, just between you and I. But, keep it in mind for tomorrow. That's all. Keep it in mind for tomorrow morning. It could be a good side list stock. The meds trade, I think I may have skipped over. Maybe the ATHE was up a little bit more at the time. But yeah, this one from pre-market we called out. Fausto went over this during the morning meeting. He actually went over this during the introductory webinar earlier, again, for all of us on social media. But nonetheless, this stock ended up dropping off quite nicely, ended up bottoming out roughly off of 7 and 650 here. So, I guess it's trying to make a squeeze back up, but I'm not too convinced just yet of the run. If it ends up making a big pop, one of us on YouTube, calls it out later on during this meeting, I'll take a look. But for right now, I'll pass. The Emrin trade ended up making, well, of course, as you could see, a big spike as soon as the market opened up from roughly 1150 up towards just about 20. Man, I mean, history repeats itself once again on this trade for as much as it ran up back on Tuesday of this week to go from 8 to 17, 18 bucks. That was, well, it ended up completely diving off in the after hours. We knew that was coming. Well, obviously today it ended up making a huge pop once again, but it's since dumped off, making that second win type of move right now from roughly above 14, perhaps you could say 1420-ish if that's the bottom. Yeah. So hey, given the push right now, it's hard to not put this stock back on our list. Actually, it has a great spread, great liquidity given the move up. So I'll definitely put this on our list for the meantime. All right, cool. My one trade that I'm in, I'll get to in just a moment. I have it tracked on my other monitor here. I'm up, just about 25 cents, so I'm not really too worried. Got my stop set in case if it craps out, but we're just about to go over that one in just a bit. So let's see what else we got first. Actually, how about this? A stock that, man, this thing put me through the spin cycle today. I always comment on a stock if it's gone up and down, big crazy move. I like to say it's been through the spin cycle today. This stock took me through the spin cycle, and thankfully I ended up doing all right on it. But at first I had to double down, triple down even, and it was ugly. So I'm staying away from this trade for right now. This WNW. I was really hopeful to see this stock make that same type of pop and run that MRIN made. The reason I say that, look at the daily chart. This was an IPO back in 2020 at the end of last year. Popped from whatever price, 1350, all the way up. A few days later, it topped off over 140, just about 150 is that? 160.68. So, you can only hope to see just a fraction of that type of squeeze on a given day. And we ended up getting it early in pre-market. I was hopeful to catch it after the open. And that was my first trade today. But man, it ended up putting me through the spin cycle. Fortunately, I came across unscathed, but it ended up making me pull some hair out first. So I'd stay away from this stock for right now. If it shows a lot of pre-market activity come tomorrow morning, regardless of how much up or down it may be, then I'll be interested in it. But I got to see some true direction, and in the case of buying, to see a lot of buying coming in on the tape. All right, so here we go. BOIN. I am in this trade practically off the LOD right now. And to go over that move really quickly for all of us in Cyber Group, yesterday's opening bell print on this trade, the opening price, the opening bell print, as we like to call it. The daily chart says 487, level 4 book map, and the tape, the time and sales program, it would show 478. That was the level that I was tracking this stock off of going into the afternoon. So I'm currently long on 1,500 shares from 480. 481 roughly, I guess I'm averaged in at. But I took 500 shares out under $5 before I started the meeting to at least ensure some sort of profit. But for right now, this stock seems to still be on a nice move up for the meantime. You know what? I'll keep it on our side list. Just because I'm in it doesn't mean I'm going to put it on our main list. 480 made for a great entry, but how much more is this going to give us? I don't know. Really, I don't know. I'm asking out loud. So I don't want to just put this on our list because I'm in it. I'm already up, 30 cents on it. So unless if you were one of the members inside Cyber Group that jumped in on this trade with me when I told you, the second I got filled, I told you I was in. But ended up pushing up pretty nicely. I'll come back to it perhaps by the end of this meeting, see where it's at. I'm tracking it, of course, on my other monitor. So if it ends up dumping off, I'll likely just take a smaller profit, get out. DD, another IPO here. I'm not familiar with the company, but damn, for 136 million shares today, very similar to the donut trade. It looks like this came out yesterday, popped and then dropped, and now up today, gapped up in pre-market and pushing up beautifully here. So, I'll put it on our list. I mean, definitely I'll put it on our list. It looks like there was actually a lot of volume traded off of 1680. The reason I say that, if you actually look on the far right side of my screen, the high of the day is 1690. You had a lot of volume filled off of 1680, looking at the volume bars on the matrix. So if that ends up testing 1680, look for a lot of green to come in on the tape. Perhaps that could be your true breakout level. All right, SLCA, kind of near the high of the day, but the stock's trading like piss poor volume right now per minute. So I'm going to pass on it for the meantime. Liquidity isn't really too filled in on that book, which actually could complement that type of move. But let's see what else we got first. Sorrento, familiar name, pushed up beautifully for us earlier this morning. Higher highs now across the last hour. What I mean by that is really here, the low, it popped up, higher lows, little higher highs pattern here. Hasn't broken a true high of the day yet, obviously, but getting close there now. I mean, I don't mind putting this on the side list. Definitely for us here in the trading room, it's a stock that we are very familiar with in the meantime, at least. All right, how about this? I tell you what, I'm probably going to pluck another 500 shares out just on that trade. It's beginning to slip back down a little bit. I don't want to look like a jerk and waste the whole trade. So now I have just about 1,000 shares left. But yeah, I took 500 shares out right there on the BLIN. All right, let's see what else we got here across the gainer side. Market's pushing up beautifully, folks. Let me zoom out on the 5-minute. You'll see the S&P ETF, the SPY. I mean, really across the last 2 days in total. But I'd expect there to be more stocks on the gainers list today, just with that in mind, or at least stocks that we're familiar with. REI, not much going on there. APRE, familiar name. The stock has a huge gap to potentially fill on the daily chart. If I could show that. All right, that just about does it on the gainers end, folks. If there's anything else that you see that's up, then type it in the chat board. Let me know. Bunch of crap hard to borrow on the losers end. I truly mean it when I say that, because unless if there's a stock that is already destroyed down like 50% or more, and we could try and do a dead cat bounce on that, unless if that's the case, I'm going to just try and find stocks that are just easy to borrow, not hard to borrow. And damn, like the entire losers list is littered with stocks that are hard to borrow. This stock is easy to borrow for me, AFMD, and just pretty flat, albeit it's kind of near the lows. All right, I'll tell you what, folks, I'm not lazy when I do this, but they're up. Actually, there's one. We'll look at one more, but aside from this TIGR, I don't see anything that resembles a familiar name, a stock that we could possibly try and short or trade. This still looks even very choppy. It's a stock that we're familiar with, at least, so I wanted to check it out. That's it. All right, so we got a few chats here from Martha inside Cyber Group alongside RJF on YouTube saying the MRIN trade is moving. We commented on that just before, right? So this one's already on our watch list. It made the bounce already from 1420-ish and still great liquidity. Spread's going to open up a bit as it continues to go up to 17. But yeah, for right now, this will be one of few stocks that we actually put on our main list. All right, Gene, there we go, man. Gene got 23 cents just now in that BLIN trade that I was calling out before we started this meeting. He got in from 487 practically with me there. He got stopped out at 510. Nice trade. And Gene picked up 23 cents on DNUT actually earlier, right as we started this meeting. Cool. All right, folks, how about this? Let me know if there's anything up, down, left, right, more than 5% that you would want me to check out before we wrap up the show for today. Fausto is going to continue the phase 3 stock course later on today, folks. I know that Greg will post the link for that pretty shortly once I'm done with the meeting here, perhaps. Not a whole lot doing on Bitcoin. We talked about Riot briefly yesterday, and that was kind of a flop. Ended up pushing up just a tiny bit, but not really much going on after the meeting ended from yesterday, right? I'll show the Bitcoin chart tomorrow when I have more time. All right, so we'll look at one stock I got from Benzinga Pro, just at the high of the day, CMRX. It's up 8.5%, 9%. Doesn't look terrible. The only thing is that it's trading relatively low volume at this time of the day. 625,000 shares at this time of the day. That's not really a whole lot, unless if this is like way more than what the stock typically does on an average basis, and it is not. So I don't know. I'm not really too particular to add this stock right now. It's, it looks all right, but I think that I feel like I'm kind of content right now. We got 3 stocks on the main list. I'll check back in on the BLIN. I said here at the end. It's a familiar name just from the last day or so. I'll call it out in the trading room, I'm sure. But my only concern, again, is that, hey, if we started this meeting before it dropped down to 480, I'd probably put it on our list because for all of us in social media, it would give you folks a chance to try and jump in on this trade. Again, just because I'm in it doesn't mean I'm going to put it on our watch list. For any one of us that were in Cyber Group, like Gene, he did pretty well in the trade, but we'll see if there's any new opportunities otherwise. Sorrento, I will add to our list. It's a familiar name, and otherwise, we don't really have too many stocks on the list thus far, and still pushing up, pretty calmly up towards the HOD, perhaps. All right, I think I'm gonna let the 1,000 shares I have in BLIN ride out, though. Otherwise, I did well in the morning, so even if I waste a good chunk of that profit, I don't really care. It's a non-factor. All right, folks, that will wrap it up for me here today. For all of us in social media, Facebook Live, YouTube. Actually, I believe this is just a YouTube stream only today. Again, there was another issue on Facebook. So, food for thought. If you're interested in catching our streams, I'd say YouTube is probably the better source. But otherwise, I'd say join us live inside our trading room to catch the majority of the action outside of these broadcasts. You can go right down to the link on the banner below for all of us on YouTube just to get yourself started on a small trial. I'll be continuing the audio here right at 3 o'clock. I'll be back on at 3 p.m. Eastern time. For all of us not joining Fausto, at least in the phase 3 course, I'll be making call outs for you folks heading into the close here. All right. I'll talk to you all soon. Take care.